Hello Centrals, I want to welcome you to this week's vlog. I have with me Daniela, who is a
Hi.
human rights activist, and she's a member of the Society for Feminist Analysis.
You got it right.
Thank you. And a member of the...
Coalition for Gender Equality.
That's one. Okay.
Yeah.
So welcome.
So thank you.
We have a very hot topic today, and it's about
Sexuality education.
yeah,
Or
and
lack
marriage,
of sexuality
and
education.
marriage and constitution,
And same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
And partnerships. And a lot of hot topics that are being debated in Romania as we speak.
and not just in Romania. Go figure.
Not just in Romania,
Yeah.
exactly. Also in Central and Eastern Europe and even Central Asia.
Darn it.
All over Europe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to put a timestamp below because I think this will be long. So I really want you to have a sense of what we're going to talk, and you can skip through the questions that you're interested.
Okay.
So stay posted, and yeah, let's begin. Daniela,
Okay.
first question for you: what is the impact of sexual education on your intimate life, and the lack of sexual education also?
Okay, to me, and to a lot of people that I keep talking to about this subject, I think it's the ingredient of a successful intimate life. That's what it is, to have it before you start sexuality, before you start your sexual life. And that's the way it should happen in most countries and in most schools, and that's my advice. Because you need to know how to protect yourself. That's the whole point, in order to enjoy your intimate life. Because sexual pleasure is a new concept that has been introduced in the debate about sexuality lately. Up
Yeah.
until, today, there was not much talk about this
Sexual
particular.
pleasure, yeah.
But let me just tell you a little secret. I lived through communism. And back then, there was only fear. There was no sexual pleasure. There was no sexuality education in schools. And everybody was so afraid to have sex and to have intimate life that it was a drag. It was no pleasure at all. Because what I remember is the 2 million children of the decree that were born in communism out of fear, not out of love. Out of fear of being, getting pregnant, and out of fear of being caught having an abortion.
Yeah.
That's
We had a huge movie on that one, which won a lot of international prizes.
That's right. There's not only the 432 feature film that actually
which we'll
depicts,
put a link to underneath, so that you
yeah,
get a
that
picture.
actually depicts a real case from the 80s that happened to a student, a girl who got pregnant and who got an illegal abortion, and that's what most people were afraid at that time. But there's also a documentary film that is extremely important, and it's called Born to Order, Children of the Decree.
Okay, we'll
And
put the link to that
we'll
one
put
underneath
a link to
also.
that one as well, because it's
Huge links
extremely
here.
important.
Keep
Yeah,
posted.
well, this is going to be like a reference interview
Good.
with
That's
full
what I
of
want.
reference material. And okay, can I address the topic of lack of sexuality
Sure,
education?
sure.
Well, that is scary. To me, it is scary because young people, for instance, are going to be afraid. They're not going to know how to perform, their sexual intimate life, because their sources of information are wrong most of the time.
And just to put a few
Untrustworthy.
sources.
Well, pornography
Okay.
is one of the key sources of information. Media.
Key but not good sources.
But not good, exactly.
Okay.
Other people, other kids who may not know how to treat this subject.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one thing, the sources of information that may be negative. Unwanted pregnancies. What are we talking about? Unwanted
Yeah.
pregnancies make Romania rank number 1 in the European Union in number of pregnancies in teenage mothers. Actually, just to quote a few numbers, it's more than 9,000 births in 1 year, and they take the reference of 2015 in mothers age 10 to 17. Can you believe
10
that?
to 17.
10
Okay.
years old.
What
10
was I
years
doing? I
old.
was in high school back then.
Yeah, exactly, most of which equals almost 5% of the total births in 2015. Yes.
Okay.
And, of whom 700 were girls aged 10 to 14. They were girls. They were teenagers. They had no business
No-
becoming mothers
and no
at that
education,
age.
yeah.
And no sexuality education, no sort of prevention, actually.
And
So
probably
that's
no support from their families either.
no
I
support
guess.
from the families, because there's a debate that sexuality education should be taught in the family. At least that's the debate between the Coalition for the Family. But it's not happening. I mean, they support
Because
this, but it's not happening in the family because parents themselves had
Never
no
got-
sexuality education in schools, and there's this reticence of parents to talk to their children about sexuality. And I know that, from way back in communism when I was running a preschool, and when I did not teach kids about sexuality education, but I taught them about mothers and their babies. And I showed them a documentary about birth underwater, and they saw how they were born. And then they went to their parents and grandparents and told them, stop lying to me about the stork story, because
I know where
Daniela
they-
showed me how I was born.
I bet that got you into a lot of trouble with parents.
Not really. I
Oh,
mean, some of
okay.
the grandparents were scared that I told them too much, but the parents, especially the young parents, were actually relieved that somebody else did that.
Talk.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they didn't have to do it anymore. So that was one. Okay, but just to let you know what's happening with the sexuality education right now, there is no sexuality education in the public school system.
Yeah, I know about that.
Except for, there's an optional subject called health education
Uh-huh.
that should include some notions
Sexual
about
education.
sexuality education. But guess who's teaching it? The volunteers of the a handful of NGOs that are expert in doing that. It's the Youth for Youth Foundation, the Society for Education in Contraception and Sexuality, the Anti-AIDS Association.
Okay.
And that's about it.
So
And
we have
there
to
are-
train trainers.
Yes,
Or teachers.
actually, the Youth for Youth Foundation did that, and we can put the link to
Underneath.
the many
Good.
resources that these organizations have on their website.
Okay.
And they're for parents, for teachers, for kids, for students. A lot
We'll
of
do that.
resources. I remember, back in the 90s, actually, they had 2 leaflets that were essential for parents, how to talk to your kids about sexuality, and for children, how to talk to your parents about sexuality.
Okay, that's
but
a good
that's
one.
very precious,
Yeah,
actually,
it is.
very, very precious. Okay, I also want to talk about a little bit about research. There's no recent research about sexuality education these days, and all the research dates back to up until 2004. But there's a very recent research, but very small, limited in 2010, which says that over 60% of sexually active adolescent girls aged 15 to 18 never used any contraceptive method. So that
Holy-
tells me
Holy crap. I'm gonna say.
yeah, that there's no prevention. Therefore, they don't know how to enjoy their
Sexuality, yeah.
their intimate life
I bet
in this respect. And luckily, luckily for some who have a computer at home or go to the modernized public libraries, there's an online platform of sexuality education called Sex versus Stork. We'll put a link to that too. That actually the initiator and I tested in public libraries, in some not small debates with high school students, and it worked. I mean, there are some resources out there. Unfortunately, the government does not take these into considerations as they should. And here I'm advocating for
For the government to
sexuality,
do so.
for the government to actually work in partnership with the NGOs who are expert in this business.
Okay.
And I rest my case.
So, next question is, what is the connection between sexuality education and accepting sexuality diversity?
Ooh, okay, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like a bridge. That's how I imagine it, of understanding correctly and accepting sexual diversity. Because otherwise, lack of it leads to stigma, which is very widespread, and discrimination, including in this country.
Good. I like that you included the country, but not limited to it.
It's not
because-
limited
yeah.
to this country, definitely. But for Romania, for instance, there is a widely supported attempt to change an article in the Constitution to actually specify that marriage is only valid between a man and a woman, thus excluding, the LGBT community from all this discussion. But what is, the good news, this good news in all this, in all our advocacy attempts, we're in this together.
Good.
I mean, all the pro-choice forces, we're all in this together, and we're trying to help one another in our advocacy efforts. Just to give you one example, in 2015, the Coalition for Gender Equality initiated a petition, an open letter to the ministers of education, health, prime minister, Romania, all the policymakers that have anything to do with sexuality education. And we got 67 organizations, NGOs in Romania,
Wow.
including the LGBT community, to sign on this one, just to request that sexuality education be introduced in the school curriculum. We wanted it compulsory at first, and we
You
had to
opted for
take.
optional?
Yeah, well, we had to actually make a compromise and accept that it be part of the optional health education. We said okay for now because no change was actually possible, but we based our advocacy action on the fact that there was a case also in 2015 of a young man who was HIV infected, and he actually died of AIDS at age 25 and infected a lot of girlfriends who in turn infected their boyfriends in that community. So what my message is, for instance, is that sexuality education can be a matter of life and death.
Yeah.
And also in sexual, not accepting sexual diversity. As a result of all this debate of late, there have been several cases of violence against, members of the gay community in Bucharest.
I see.
So it can be bad, really bad, and it leads to hatred and all that. I mean, the dialogue should be open for people to start understanding who we're talking about and what we're talking about.
Especially in this age when we have so many sources of information, and this topic is not necessarily new. I mean, we have to face it.
Yes.
At least in Romania, we've been talking about this since the 1990s, right
Yes.
after communism.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we ought to have been
But-
somewhere else by now. but-
Exactly, but right now it's like locked down on this type of communication, and it's really bad. And we need to do something, to get out of this lockdown on communication between us, the advocates for human rights, and the government and the church. The church that is obviously opposing and trying to spread its influence among the members of the coalition for the family, for instance.
Okay.
So we still have a long way to go regarding this one. But
Luckily,
on the other
there are many
hand,
people coming on board.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, but on the other hand, we have gay prides. It was the 13th gay pride this year,
yeah.
so that's a success. I count it as a success. And what?
We have movies, we have documentaries.
Exactly.
We have a
We
community
have
of polyamorous
filmmakers.
people getting larger and larger in Romania.
Exactly. We have
So-
some. Yeah. Of course, they are being recognized outside Romania more than inside Romania, but because
It's-
our community is small, but
It's a process.
It's a process, and it's a good one. It's a good start.
Daniela, last question for you.
Okay.
Where do such things happen also in the rest of the world?
Okay. I'm gonna give you 3 bad examples, negative, and 3 positive examples
Good.
from Europe, from
Okay.
Central and Eastern Europe, actually. I'm going to start with Poland, the anomaly of this region where abortion was banned in 1993 in full democracy, and where right now the Senate is trying to restrict emergency contraception by saying that all such drugs should be prescribed by a physician. That's one
Okay.
thing.
I
Okay.
get it.
I'm going to quote the March for Life in Croatia, Romania, and Moldova this year. But particularly in Croatia, the Constitutional Court has used this March for Life to actually have a say in the new abortion law that they would like the parliament to pass in a couple of years. So that's one other thing. In Romania and Moldova, the March for Life is very visible, and it attracts thousands of participants because the Coalition for the Family has been supported by the Orthodox Church in creating very positive messages for this particular day that they observe. And so that's another example. And a third example is the a research that has been conducted in Armenia recently, attitudes of Armenian parents toward adolescent sexual development, which found out that Armenian parents actually tend to avoid topics such as sex and sexuality education, but they tend to have lessons on sexual morality and to a lesser extent on contraception, sexually transmitted infections, very important, and also pregnancy prevention. But now I'm going to skip to the good news and the good examples. I'm going to keep Armenia as an example where, in order to celebrate the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia, the Society Without Violence, an NGO in Armenia, organized a queer monologues in actually a theatrical play. Where the goal of which was to increase the visibility of the lesbian, bisexual, and trans women in Armenia, which is a very new subject, and they also aimed at celebrating their small victories lately. Okay, we're gonna put links to all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, there's another network in Europe, in the all over Europe. It's called the International Planned Parenthood Federation. There are a lot of organizations, including one in Romania they're part of. And in Lithuania, they started a campaign called I Decide campaign, whereby they organized, I decide about my own sexuality, my use of contraception, and they organized a press conference in the main family planning and sexual health organization in Lithuania. In partnership with a member of parliament, they organized a press conference to influence policymakers, the public, and the media of the importance of sexuality education in schools and contraception and all the family planning program. Okay,
And
that's
sexual
another.
agency, basically, because you are the owner and the decider and the leader of your own life, body, and so on, right?
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and the last good news comes
Okay.
from Romania.
Wow.
To
Okay.
celebrate May 28th, the International Day of Action for Women's Health, we organized a yard sale for choice, me as the representative of the Society for Feminist Analysis, in partnership with the Youth Faith Foundation that hosted the event, and the Society for Education in Contraception and Sexuality, and the Anti-AIDS Association, and the Marie Stopes Foundation, and even the public sector, the Public Health Institute. Also, together, we talked about a lot of things about sexuality education, access to contraception, to family planning services, and also about cervical cancer prevention.
Wow. You
So-
have a link for that one, I assume, right?
We have a link for all of this
For all of those,
information,
good.
and we combined it with a yard sale. It was a small event, but very successful. And at the end of it, we decided to replicate it next year.
Good. I'm coming next year. I didn't know
Okay.
about it this year. Shame
Yeah.
on me.
No, that's
But
okay.
I'm coming next year for
Okay.
sure. And
Okay.
I'll look
You
forward
will
to
have the
link.
chance to talk to a lot of my colleagues about all of these important touchy-feely subjects and get
Touchy-feely, yeah.
their
It's true,
opinion
but
about that.
yeah.
Yes, seriously.
Actually, emotion is also very important. So next
Exactly.
to health, next to education, understanding and processing your emotion, yeah, it's part of your sexual life and
You bet.
sexual maturity also. So, Daniela, thank you for this amazing discussion that we had. And I hope to have you again soon here with other developments, because we're
Okay.
going to be watching what happens in Romanian society the next, I don't know, few weeks.
Yes.
So I hope things will turn out well, and I hope the people that are watching, if the time or the case comes, that take action. I hope we all take action. I hope we all go do whatever is necessary to do, and yeah, keep in mind that everything that happens around sexuality is affecting us as well. So
And it's
don't-
worth advocating for.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
guys, I hope that you enjoy this talk. I hope that you use the timestamps and the links, the resources that we put below. And please comment and please share this video, because actually we want to get the word out on this subject. And until next week, I hope that you have a free, independent, beautiful, intimate life.
Yeah. Bye.